Even though our sick daughter's condition suddenly worsened, my husband still went on an affair trip with a 20-year-old female college student. He insisted it was for work and didn't even answer my call asking him to come to see our daughter. Despite my earnest prayers, my daughter sadly passed away. Even in her final moments, my husband Derek did not heed my cries. I saw my daughter's final moments and felt a gaping hole in my heart. Into that hole poured an uncontrollable anger towards my husband. What did I do with this uncontrollable anger? I told my husband that I was in the middle of my daughter's funeral when he lied about his job and went on a cheating trip. I remember the day I gave birth to my daughter like it was yesterday. She was born after only 3 hours of labor. She cried loudly and healthily, showing me her cute face. My husband, who was present at the birth, and my then 5-year-old son were there too. We all rejoiced at her birth. I think our family was truly happy and fulfilled at the time. But now we can no longer laugh together with the same faces. This seems like a serious story. Is it okay to listen to it? Did the family fall apart? Was it due to divorce or estrangement? I divorced my husband, and then my daughter went to heaven before me. Losing my daughter is still very painful. I wanted to protect her, even at the cost of my own life. But my daughter fought hard. She was sick, but she really fought well. I'm proud of my daughter. And of course, my son also fought with us. He must have felt lonely, but always thought of his sister. But only my husband betrayed us. We decided to protect my daughter together as a family, but my husband didn't even see her final brave moments. It was something we should have overcome as a couple, but my husband betrayed me. It might remind you of sad things, but if it's okay, I'm going to talk about it here. Yes, I wanted everyone to hear it today. I'll continue talking. Shortly after she was born, a heart condition was found, and she lived a life of repeated hospital admissions. She had several surgeries and many restrictions in her daily life. When we felt relieved that she was healthy, she suddenly got worse, or the test results weren't good. And her hospital stays were prolonged. It was tough, but just seeing my daughter's cute smile kept me going. After learning about my daughter's illness, I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. Because my daughter needed regular hospital visits, my husband and I discussed and decided it would be best. But as soon as I became a full-time housewife, my husband completely dumped all childcare responsibilities on me. It seemed like he assumed I would take care of our daughter's nursing care alone. There was a day when our daughter suddenly fell ill, and I called my husband to take her to the hospital, but his response was terrible. Hello, are you still at work?
Well, I finished work already. I'm out having drinks with colleagues. It's a work celebration.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but could you come home? Our daughter isn't feeling well. I want to take her to the hospital.
Then just take her yourself. Do I need to come back?
I'll go to the hospital, but our son is here. Can't you watch our son at home?
Huh? Why? Shouldn't our son come to the hospital too?
If she needs to be hospitalized, I might need to stay with her. That's why I'm asking you to take care of our son. When can you come back?
Then bring our son with you. Why do I have to come back? I'm with colleagues for work. I'm the one supporting the family. I support the family by working. So handle the kids on your own, Amber.
He said this and completely ignored me. In the end, I asked my parents to take care of our son. I was really upset and sad with my husband, but at that time I had no choice but to endure it. Because as my husband said, I didn't earn any money, so without him I couldn't pay for our daughter's medical expenses. I desperately wanted to protect my daughter, so I couldn't bring myself to confront my husband. But I'm sure that was a mistake. After that, my husband became even more arrogant. He stopped doing any housework or childcare, and of course, he stopped visiting our daughter in the hospital. Even when my son and I tried to talk to him.
I'm tired from work. Besides, she'll be discharged soon anyway, so there's no need to go, right?
That's all he ever says. I was busy to the point of exhaustion every day with housework, taking care of our son and nursing our daughter. Your husband is trash. Isn't he worried about the kids? Really? Has he always been like this? But it wasn't always like this. Initially, when we got married, we both worked, so he helped out quite a bit with the housework. Since our son was born, he has been somewhat involved in parenting. At first, he was really worried about our daughter's illness, but I think my husband started to feel dissatisfied when I began focusing our lives around our daughter. Me being absent from home due to accompanying our daughter to the hospital. Family plans being canceled due to our daughter's health condition. I think these accumulated situations didn't sit well with my husband, so I think he started asserting his role as the breadwinner and trying to dominate. What's all that about? He's acting like a child. Some husbands can't stand not being the center of attention. Seems like some men get jealous of their own children. They really act like children, don't they? But I still had hopes, because there were times when my husband was cooperative, so I thought maybe things would go back to how they used to be. But in the end, my husband disappointed me. He ended up betraying our family. It happened when our daughter turned 4. During this time, our daughter still had regular hospital visits, but on good days, she could go to kindergarten. She couldn't run around like other kids, but she enjoyed singing and drawing with children her age. Her face lit up with joy when called by her friends. It really sparkled. But one day her health deteriorated and she had to be hospitalized. And then about a week after our daughter was hospitalized, I fell ill and ended up bedridden. I wanted to take her a change of clothes to the hospital, but I just couldn't muster the strength to get up. So I decided to ask my husband to take the clothes for me. Hey, could you go to the hospital to see our daughter today? I'm not feeling well. I have a fever, so I can't do it.
I have to work overtime today. Can't you go even if you have a fever? You're her mother.
In my current condition, it's impossible. Do you really have to work overtime?
Of course. I'm working overtime to support you and our daughter.
I appreciate that, but you're her father too. Please prioritize being a father today. I'm begging you. If you really have to work overtime, I'll talk to your company. They have sick leave for caregiving, don't they? I'll tell them you need to take care of me and ask them to let you off.
Don't do that. It'd be embarrassing. Fine, I'll go today.
Because I didn't back down, my husband reluctantly agreed. You held your ground, Amber. Good job. When things get tough, your husband needs to step up too. After all, you're a family. At that time, I was desperate because I was so unwell, so it must have been a burst of adrenaline. My husband grudgingly went back home to get the clothes and headed to the hospital, bumbling all the way. Seeing him go, I felt relieved and decided to rest and recover. It was a special thing for my husband to go to the hospital that day, so I knew I had to push myself again from the next day. But from the next day, my husband seemed like a changed man. After that one visit to the hospital, he started going to see our daughter every day. Surprised, I asked, "What's going on? Are you going to visit her again today?" My husband smiled and said,
"Seeing our daughter fighting so hard made me want to support her. So from now on, I'm going to visit her every day."
That's what he told me. I was genuinely moved by his words. I thought he finally understood. But it turned out my husband wasn't visiting the hospital regularly for our daughter's sake. I waited until I was fully recovered before going to see my daughter, thinking my husband was taking care of it. When I finally visited my daughter's hospital room after a while, she clung to me with a face that looked like she was about to cry. "Mommy, did you catch a cold? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Sorry for making you worry." "I missed you. I was sad being alone." "I'm sorry. But Daddy came to see you, right? He was so eager to visit every day." "Daddy came, but he always left quickly. He just dropped off the clothes and left, saying he was busy." Seeing my daughter with tears in her eyes, I realized she was truly lonely. If so, what about my husband? Curious, I asked my daughter slowly. "Daddy did bring your clothes, right? Didn't he stay to talk with you afterward?" "No, he didn't. Daddy just dropped off the clothes and left right away. When I tried to show him my origami, he said he was too busy." Seeing my daughter trying so hard to explain, I felt confused. After all, recently my husband had been saying things like,
"I went to the hospital to see our daughter today. I'll go again tomorrow, so if there are any clothes or anything she needs, let me know."
That's what he had been telling me. And he must have actually been going, because the clothes I asked him to bring for our daughter were properly delivered. Come to think of it, he said he was going to visit her after work today too. He was eager to bring some snacks for our daughter. But while he seemed so enthusiastic, our daughter felt lonely because he wasn't spending time with her. I wanted to find out what was causing this disconnect. And since my husband should be at the hospital every evening, I decided to check for myself. I went home, finished the housework, dropped off our son with my parents, and headed back to the hospital. I told my daughter, "Let's surprise Daddy." Wow, I felt so nervous. And what about my husband? It turned out my daughter was telling the truth. My husband came to our daughter's hospital room, handed her the snacks, and then left almost immediately. It didn't even take 2 minutes. Even though I was hiding, I was in a pretty obvious spot, but he didn't notice me at all. When my husband arrived, "Daddy, today," my daughter tried to say, but
"I always tell you I'm busy, right? I don't have time, so I'm leaving now,"
he said, cutting her off. Watching him leave like a gust of wind, my daughter said, "Oh, well, Daddy didn't see you hiding, Mommy. Too bad for him, my daughter said, as if unbothered. But for me, it was unbelievable. So I told my daughter to wait a moment and decided to follow my husband to see where he was going. A short walk from my daughter's hospital room is an area with vending machines. It's set up with tables and chairs, making it a little rest area. And there, my husband was sitting, together with a woman I didn't know. She seemed to be a patient, with bandages on her leg and crutches beside her. My husband and this woman were laughing together, looking like a couple. Even though he spent only a brief moment in our daughter's room, he was leisurely chatting and having tea with this woman. Seeing my husband acting so flirtatiously made me really angry. So, he was visiting this young woman instead of our daughter. Is he cheating? But that woman is a patient in the hospital, right? Cheating in the hospital? Let's call this woman Allie. I think it's certain that my husband was going to see Allie. He seemed to have given her some kind of present at that time. But whether they're in a cheating relationship or if their relationship has developed to that extent, honestly, it seemed suspicious. After all, my husband only started visiting recently. If they met here at this hospital, it should have been not long ago. Is my husband in the middle of trying to charm her? He's really putting in effort, even giving her presents. Is he finding a new love while our daughter is fighting in the same hospital? It's unbelievable. If my husband is trying to start an affair with Allie, I thought I needed to stop it. But this was the first time I caught my husband and Allie together. I figured he could come up with plenty of excuses if I confronted them right now. So I decided to observe my husband's actions a little longer. I planned to gather evidence before confronting him. Since then, he has been happily talking about good things that happened during his visits to our daughter. Perhaps because it's in the hospital, his actions didn't quite seem like cheating. But their relationship seemed to be growing deeper day by day. I have been capturing the cheerful scenes around me with my camera, planning to use them as evidence to confront my husband soon. At that moment, our daughter's condition suddenly worsened. We received a call from the hospital about her condition at exactly 7 a.m., just as we were all starting our usual morning routine. It was a shockingly sudden news. Our son agreed to go with me to a visit, and we prepared to head to the hospital together. So I said to my husband, "Please call your company quickly. Let's go to the hospital together." In response,
"If you're going, I'm fine. I'm going to the office,"
Derek said as if he was spitting his words out. He said it dismissively, refusing to go to the hospital despite our daughter's sudden deterioration in condition. That moment was when I truly realized that my husband was hopeless. Without saying another word, I went to the hospital with our son. As I approached my daughter, I saw her in a state of suffering like I had never seen before. There had been many times when her condition had worsened in the past, but this time I felt different. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be true. Hang in there, hang in there. I prayed silently in my heart. I'm sure my son felt the same way. In the midst of it all, I trembled as I contacted my husband. Despite knowing he was unreliable, I needed him at that moment. I didn't need him to do anything. I just wanted him to be here and pray for our daughter. It was such a simple request, yet my husband dismissed it completely. "Please, our daughter's condition is not good. Come to the hospital. Stay with us."
"So what can I do about it? Haven't we been through this many times before? You're always exaggerating." "Oh, I just got a business trip scheduled now. I don't think I can come back today. I probably won't be able to answer calls either. It's an important deal."
"Wait! Please wait, I'm begging you." Looking back now, I realize how pathetic I must have seemed, clinging to my husband, but my pleas didn't reach him. And then the phone call was abruptly ended. I felt frustrated and sad, and tears wouldn't stop flowing. "Dad can't come? Mom, are you okay? I'm here with you. Mom, please don't cry." My son encouraged me as he saw me crying. He was only 9 years old. That was the moment I truly woke up. I had to stay strong. From then on, I wiped away my tears and stayed by my daughter's side with my son. For a long, long time, while we spoke softly, our daughter struggled bravely. She passed away that same night. My son and I cried and clung to my departed daughter, holding her small body close. But we couldn't keep crying forever. After that, I made phone calls to various places to inform them of my daughter's passing. Of course, I also called my husband, but as expected, he didn't answer the phone. After that, time passed in a flurry, preparing for the wake, preparing for the funeral. On top of that, I had another matter that needed my attention. I was truly overwhelmed with busyness to the point of feeling dizzy. But strangely, I found it comforting. If I do nothing, tears come when I think of our daughter. Amber, what can I say? It's so sad. That jerk of a husband not being here at a time like this? Is work really that important to him? No, it can't just be work. His relationship with Allie seems suspicious. To cut to the chase, my husband lied to me. He didn't go on any business trip, but I decided to proceed with the wake and funeral without my husband. And just minutes before the funeral began, my husband finally called back.
Hey, you keep calling over and over. It's annoying. Are you trying to interfere with my work?
I called that night too. Was that also work-related?
Nights are busy with client dinners. Seriously, don't keep calling over trivial things.
Trivial things? Fine then. The funeral for our daughter is starting now, so I'll hang up. It might be trivial to you.
Huh? What do you mean? Whose funeral?
It's our daughter's funeral. And by the way, your colleagues from work are already here.
What? What does that mean?
He hung up on me after hearing that. And then I went to say my final goodbye to our daughter. The funeral proceeded smoothly after that. Everyone mourned the passing of our daughter. And then came the time for her to be carried out. At that moment, my husband finally appeared at the hall, tears streaming down his face.
Oh, poor thing. She was only 4 years old,
he cried out as he approached our daughter. But the men by his side stopped him. They were his colleagues from work.
What have you been doing all this time? You were supposed to be on leave, right? Amber was told you were on a business trip, but there was no such plan, right? Well, I was working. I was trying to secure new clients during my leave.
My husband struggled to explain, tears pouring down his face again. My husband glared at me.
It was indeed an important job, but when it came to our daughter's critical situation, I should have rushed back immediately. Why didn't you let me know about it? Because of that, I couldn't be there for my beloved daughter's final moments.
He shouted and collapsed on the spot. I think he tried to shift the focus away by mentioning the fake business trip when his colleagues pointed it out. But I don't think anyone felt sorry for him considering how absurd his attempt was. Because by then, everyone already knew where my husband had been and what he had been doing all this time. I called several times, but you didn't answer.
That's a lie. I didn't notice the calls. If you really intended to let me know, you could have left more missed calls, right? You neglected to do that.
So during your stay at that spa resort, should I have called you there?
Huh?
You were doing business at a luxury spa resort, right? Was it a business meeting? It must have been tough. And your business partner, Allie, seems quite young. What does she do? You stayed multiple nights for the business, but you only booked one room, right? Were you perhaps roughing it out somewhere? Or did you stay in the same room? As I relentlessly questioned my husband, his face turned pale. I drove the point home by thrusting several photos at my husband. In those photos, there were images of my husband and Allie holding hands and walking through the spa town. He was cheating after all. How despicable. Incredible. How did you find out? Actually, someone from my husband's company helped me out. After our daughter passed away, I couldn't reach my husband, so I contacted his company. I asked for the phone number of his business trip location. My daughter had passed away while battling illness. Then surprisingly, someone from my husband's company informed me that he had taken a vacation. That fact left me feeling completely numb. What was he doing, not being there for our daughter's final moments? I suppose they could sense my despair. The employee who handled the call kindly said,
I'll look into it a bit more.
And through their investigation, that employee found out that my husband was apparently on a spa trip. He's probably not alone. There might be someone he's having an affair with. And they told me. So right after that, I immediately hired a detective to investigate my husband's affair. The employees at my husband's company were amazing. They were so capable, weren't they? It was great to have such kind people around. Amber's subsequent actions were also swift and impressive. I'm really grateful to the employee. I truly appreciated it. But apparently, my husband was incredibly careless. There was a spa brochure on his desk, they say, and inside the spa brochure, there was a pamphlet for a cosmetics brand aimed at young women. He must have been quite excited because even the travel itinerary notes were left behind. So news of my husband's affair spread like wildfire in no time at all. Moreover, since the news of our daughter's passing was also conveyed, it seems the employees were furious with my husband's actions. And I also informed the relatives who came to the wake about this situation. I pleaded with everyone not to contact my husband anymore. I didn't want him to attend our daughter's funeral. Realizing that everyone knew everything, my husband turned pale. He He seemed resigned and suddenly started to bow deeply right then and there.
I'm sorry. I didn't expect things to get this bad. I don't know what came over me. It was just a little fling.
He started apologizing earnestly, but I couldn't forgive him, and I didn't let him near the funeral home, of course. Of course I didn't take him to the crematorium either. I asked his colleagues to ensure he didn't get near our daughter. Despite everything, we were able to safely send my daughter off to heaven. Please wait there for a while. I conveyed my love to her in my heart. Afterward, I proceeded with divorce negotiations through a lawyer. Of course, I also requested compensation. I demanded compensation from Allie as well, which caused the relationship between my husband and Allie to fall apart. Can you believe it? Allie is still a 20-year-old college student. I didn't expect to get involved in something like this. Allie apparently didn't know my husband was married, and now she's threatening to sue. It seems my husband's position at work deteriorated, and he ended up resigning. His parents and relatives came to the funeral, so it seems he's been abandoned even by his own family. I imagine he's living somewhere alone now. It's just a natural consequence for him. No room for sympathy. As for Amber, how are you doing now? Have things settled down a bit? I'm currently living with my 2 children. Sometimes my son and I talk about our daughter. She was adorable and surely smart too, I'm sure of it. I know it sounds completely biased, but talking about my daughter like that now makes me happy. Thank you all for listening to my story. I feel relieved now, and somehow my heart feels organized. From now on, I'll face forward in life, because my daughter is watching over me, rather than a husband who prioritized his ugly desires over his daughter fighting illness. As a result, my husband lost not only our daughter, but also the trust of everyone around him. Someone who can't cherish their closest family can never make anyone happy, and surely they won't be loved by anyone. After all, human hearts are ultimately tied by trust.